Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Brian Kelly, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Communications here at SBAM. And I want to say welcome to one of our new VIP members, Michelle Peters with Savvy Career Pros LLC. Welcome, Michelle. All right, Brian, we have talked a lot about adopt and amend and the implications of that court decision here on the briefing. But we do need to start thinking about being prepared for 2025 and the changes that we need to account for. So today, let's do a little overview on what to expect regarding minimum wage. And while you're talking, I'm going to drop a link to our resource page in the chat.
Very good. Well, we have some hope that come December, that the legislature will consider making some changes to to the current paid sick leave requirements and particularly the tipped wage credit portion of the minimum wage. I would say there's pretty close to zero chance that the regular minimum wage schedule will be anything different than what I'm about to share with you now. So what I want to do is I'm just going to share my screen and a just one page of a bigger presentation that we often give. And this will lay out for you what to expect with respect the to minimum wage changes coming up. And there's kind of an oddity that there was already under current law before adopt and amend, there was already an increase scheduled to happen on the first of January 2025. And then after that, there was to be an increase to because of the adopt and amend decision. So there's going to be this weird period between January 1st and February 20th where you have a minimum wage increase and then another on the February 21st. So there'll be kind of a two-step increase for minimum wages. So on January 1st, 2025, the regular longstanding minimum wage law will increase minimum wage from 1033 to 1056. So you see that kind of up here at the top, 1056, and then it'll stay at 1056 until February 21st when it goes up to the adopt and amend schedule, which you'll find here. Then it goes up to 1248. So the tipped wage credit is 38% of whatever the minimum wage rate is, and that's what it'll be until February 21st. And that's so this two-step process will affect both the regular minimum wage and the tipped wage. So February 21st, the tipped wage, instead of being 38%, will go up to 48%, which is what we have here. So it is kind of a strange scenario here where you have successive increases in the minimum wage because there's still one more to happen under the old law and then a new one to happen under the new law that the Supreme Court has put into place. And so you see that the tipped wage credit going up and then going forward from there on out, though minimum wage changes will actually happen on February 21st of every year, kind of reset the date under which minimum wage laws or minimum wage rates change from January 1st, which has always been, to February 21st. It's not exactly clear to me why the Supreme Court and the Department of Labor would have set the minimum wage date change to be then February 21st. I can see why in the first year they're doing it February 21st because they just want to give 6 months to implement it. But then it doesn't reset back to the regular date of January 1st, which I just find a little bit odd. I mean, it delays an increase in minimum wage a little longer for employers, so I suppose that's a minor win in this whole scenario, which is really going to be tough on employers when you put it together with the paid sick leave requirements. But this part that I just showed you, I'm very confident is not going to change. The paid sick leave that you've heard from us, we're hopeful that the legislature will consider about a half a dozen changes to it, but we shall see. If they do, it will happen in December. There's no chance that anything will pass to change it before December. And that doesn't give a lot of time to prepare and to get ready for February 21st when the rest of this changes.
All right, well, thanks, Brian. In the link I shared, if you scroll down to the minimum wage image, you'll be able to see that data for yourself, or reach out to us at sbam@sbam.org if you have questions. All right, we're going to move into our Data Monday report.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here too, so we're going to get right into it. And I'm going to start out with the NFIB, um, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. They do surveys monthly. We typically share those results with you. These are national surveys of small businesses, and so they ask a series of questions that are pretty insightful. And frankly, I find a lot of this um, very close to what we're seeing in our own quarterly surveys that we do, just anecdotally what we pick up from our members. So the first question is this a good time to expand your small business? And hardly anybody is saying yes right now. So it is kind of a wait and see type of an attitude out there, very much in line with what we're hearing. In terms of these indexes about hiring plans and open jobs that are hard to fill, as you can see that both hiring plans and jobs that are open and hard to fill are both kind of coming down, which would signal a kind of a softness, if you will, in the small business labor market. So neither one of them are at areas that would historically you would say are particularly low. They're just low to compared to what the times that we're just coming out of now. Hiring plans and overlaid with compensation plans, as you can see, while that both have come down, they appear to stabilize over the last few months, and so they're bouncing around, but within a smaller range. And again, both of them down off their highs, but not at particularly low points compared to history. In terms of prices, higher prices that those who expect to pay higher prices are experiencing higher prices, and those that that are planning to increase prices in the future. Both of those have come off their high, and again, it just appear to be kind of bouncing around at a relatively small level that looks fairly normal compared to historical standards. And then here's the one that we always show every month, which is what's the single most important problem? Really forcing people to pick the top problem that they face out of these four. They've asked about the same four for quite some time. And as you can see, that inflation is still number one. Still, these cost increases are still on top. And we've seen the compensation increases and cost pressures, health insurance in particular this year, within small businesses really driving up costs. So I think really a lot of that gets caught up in when a business points to inflation as their main or top concern. It's really all the cost increases that they're experiencing within the business, still at the top. Quality of labor coming down, but still in number two in the number two position. And the lowest of the four is the cost of labor. And I thought this kind of interesting that this has been the case here for a little while, but it's, employers are doing their part. They're paying people more than ever. And but they're paying for the best help. So in other words, pay up, but have higher expectations. And so the problem is really not just on its own cost of labor, but it's the quality of labor that you get for the cost out there today. And then on the optimism in the business conditions indexes, actually both of those have somewhat come up off their lows. So again, not impressively high, but not as low as they had been. So I would say this is a very kind of stable looking history, but here's the headline. And the headline is that that overall inflation is continuing its downward trend. So overall consumer price index at 2.4%. You remember from last month, it was 2.5%. So it's just kind of inching down just little by little. There was a pretty dramatic decline where it went down from 9% all the way down to about 3 or so percent. And and then from there, it's just bounced around and then it's just starting to creep its way down overall. However, I do think that the Federal Reserve, which has started to reduce interest rates and, in other words, loosen monetary policy. There's a few things in this particular report that I think are going to give them a little bit of pause. And part of that is just the fact that while overall inflation went down, when you take the commodities out, it didn't go down. It actually went up a little bit, not a lot, not enough to be alarming, but enough to pause to say, even though it went down, it didn't go down in the core, it went down with the commodities. Looking at a regional map, you'll see, unfortunately, Michigan is in a region which is toward the higher end of inflation. So you'll see this, the mountain range basically states here are the higher ones, and then the Midwest being the second highest in the nation, although not remarkably different than the national average, which is running a little bit hotter. Looking at month over month, both the overall consumer price index month over month is the total inflation over the month, and you'll see pretty flat. So a little bit down, but not much again overall. But if you're to take out food and energy, so the commodities of food and energy, and look at what's happened to the rest of prices, and you'll see this, they're not going to feel too good about that trend. Again, it's not alarmingly high. It's more about the trend than the absolute level. But I think it's just starting to tell a little bit different of a story. Whereas before they were thinking, hey, that they're not quite mission accomplished, but they're on their way and they can start loosening monetary policy. And I still think it's the right decision to loosen monetary policy. I think that's the way they should continue down that course. Whether or not they will is another question, but I think they should. But this is certainly going to give them a little pause. Looking at the categories, you'll see that on the left are the month over month changes, and on the right is year over year changes. So the right is going to be more important, I think, overall. But as you can see, that airfare and motor vehicle insurance are, airfare on the biggest of those month over month, 3% increase over the previous month. Motor vehicle insurance up 1.2%. But look over here on the year over year, the highest increase across the board in motor vehicle insurance. And we've really heard a lot about this, folks that have been experiencing high premium increases. And these are consumer products. You don't see like health insurance on here. That would be more on the producer price index, but than the consumer price index. But these types of that type of an increase, motor vehicle insurance, and then if you just look right down, these are all things that people have they're kind of like necessities, considering necessities in life, the things that are experiencing increases. So things like rent, hospital services, eating out, meats, poultry, fish, and eggs, electricity. These are all things that were above the averages, and they're the sorts of things that people really can't avoid. So looking at the core inflation, that is less food and energy, and so the goods and the services separated out from each other, we see that there is continued deflation in goods, core goods. So in other words, removing commodities. you see that prices have actually come down on core goods, but inflation is still at 4.7% with core services. So the cost of services continues to rise as the cost of goods has come under control. There is kind of still I'll say a modest downward trend, but that level downward trend in the services, but that level 4.7% is certainly not comfortable. And then looking at what's called the super core. So you take out the commodities of services, and the super core of services means you take out housing as well, and just look at what's happening with all other services. And that was actually a few months ago in deflation territory. And then the super core has really, they got 3 months in a row with increases, and 0.4% just in a single month. Annualize that out, and you see it's higher than certainly higher than what policymakers would want to see it. Moving past inflation, I like this chart because I think it's a very practical look at real wage income, which would be gross wage increases minus inflation for the population as a whole. And what you'll see here is that we now have quite a stretch here in 2023 and 2024. Most of these 2 years, inflation has not taken away wage increases. However, this graph, I think, particularly illustrates how much needs to be made up for before people are just back to a point where they have the same level of buying power in their wages that they did back in the beginning of 2021. So I think that's really the conundrum that people find themselves in, the frustration of seeing nominal wage increases, but having inflation taking that away. And even if inflation is lower now and there's real wage increases, it'll be a while before the area under this line with the green exceeds the area under the line with the red. Okay, so that's the point. When there's so much green area here on this side of this event, so much green area here that it's more space than all of this, that's the point when people will be back to where they were in the beginning of 2021. That's a really important measure, I think, of people's frustration in today's economy. And then the jobless claims, I wanted to throw this in here too. I know there's a lot of slides we've looked at already, but there are increases in both the initial jobless claims, is what you see in blue, which had kind of been experiencing a nice downward trend, and then also continuing jobless claims. So basically, you make jobless claims as filing for unemployment. You have to recertify every week for these unemployment benefits or these unemployment insurance claims. And so the blue line are those that are coming in for the very first time. The orange line are those that are refiling that were in the mix last week too. And you see both of those increasing, which to me, just looking at that, I think it really makes the monetary policy decisions a little more complicated when you see, nothing falling out in terms of the economy, but jobless claims that are, stable at a high level, and now maybe looking like they're going up, and those core inflationary measures definitely not going down. I think you could make an argument. We've seen enough to where we say there's an upward trend that is beginning. Maybe a bit early to say that, but looking like they're certainly not going down, and it's got to give the Federal Reserve pause as they head into their meeting right after the election.
All right, Brian. So you've talked about the Federal Reserve and weighed in on your opinion. What do you think is going to happen? Are you changing your mind?
Yeah, last week I said that I thought that they might, given the jobs numbers, which looked surprisingly strong, and upward revisions for the previous 2 months. We've been seeing downward revisions for month after month after month most of this year. That told me that the idea of doing another 0.5% cut in interest rates that they seem to be almost pre-announcing at their last meeting, that seemed unlikely to me last week, that I thought that they would, maybe scale that back a little bit. Seeing these inflation numbers now, I think they have to, at least in the back of their mind, be a little concerned that it is early to take such aggressive actions on interest rates. I don't think it's enough for them to cancel their thoughts of any interest rate cuts. However, I don't see them doing 0.5% again. Not given the jobs numbers and given these inflation numbers. I think in any other circumstance, if they'd have kind of kept their powder dry in the last meeting, maybe they'd keep them straight. I still think they'll probably do a 0.25% decrease next time. But if we keep on seeing numbers like these, I think they'll park the interest rates there until something else changes, because it's just not, there's nothing in the last couple of weeks of information that has come out that would argue on the side of further interest rate cuts. And so I think that they're kind of stuck with one more, and then something will have to change before they go any further than that.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today. We will be back here next Monday at 3 p.m. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.